Major bombshells as well as major sobering moments in the first day of opening statements and testimony in the Sarah Boone trial. And we're going to go over some of those highlights in today's video. Hello Sofa Squad and welcome back to the sofa. The sofa's back there, I'm right here. Now what we're going to be doing today, this is like a special edition episode or whatever. It's going to be coming out at a weird time, like here in a little bit. We just finished streaming day one opening statement, Sarah Boone. And this is a very quick, I made some notes as we were watching it, and I'm just going to go over them real quick and talk about them. So if you follow me, this is going to be very similar to like how I do documentaries and stuff like that. And just kind of touch on some of the major highlights here. Now, if you want to watch this along with the Sofa Squad, along with me, make sure you're subscribed to my podcast channel. It's down in the description below. We're going to be streaming again Monday morning, and then just when I can, we'll stream and whatnot and watch it. So that being said, I'm not being rude, but I can be looking at my phone here so I can look at the notes that I picked up and whatnot. And I'm just going to start from the very beginning. Now, we did see opening statements, and I put this here before this started. We had many motions before court. This is about like what evidence could be used and what couldn't be used in opening statements. And of course, this was brought up by the defense. They were wanting to show pictures and this and that and blah, 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 blah. And it was just like, are we going to ever get started? You know, and the state, I think, was just like, how, what, when can we bring this jury in? Why are we still here? So the judge strikes this down. We get started. Okay, so the state opens up first, which is usual, and now I'm just going to begin reading from here and talking about my notes. So he talks about Sarah getting, this man in the suitcase. He was only 103 pounds. She did this maliciously to punish him. He doesn't know exactly really how long it took for him to die or like how long exactly he was in there. He outlines transcripts of the suitcase, and in this, he was going through the videos, what I mean, and he was reading to the jury the transcript of that video, and it was very emotional thud type thing. He mentions that they're going to hear her slurring because of drinking. Now, he says, how did we get to this point? And he'll talk about the next morning, she finds him. He'll talk about her ex-husband, who we see on the stand. We'll talk about that. He comes over. He says, Brian's like, he comes in the foyer. He's like, nope, I'm not coming in there. You need to call 911. And we'll hear directly from him. He talks about that 911 phone call. He'll say that, yes, this was positional asphyxiation. I'm saying that wrong, but you know what I'm talking about. And basically, he suffocated in the suitcase. Now, he'll also talk about the bottles of wine. Now, this is one of those things that I was like, oh, and we'll see the bottles of wine. He described it like this, like, when you think of bottles of wine, we're thinking like at a restaurant, like a little cylinder thing. Well, these were like big old bottles of wine, okay? A jug of wine. So it shed more light on the level of drunkenness that we hear, where it's like, oh, so we went through a lot of wine that night. And again, we'll see the bottle of wine. Okay, he'll talk about how cheap it was. It's like a $9.75 a bottle or whatever. He talks about the interviews and the cops and finding evidence in the phone. The text messages. Okay, now they go into this. And this was a major bombshell to me, because he'll talk about some text messages that she has back and forth with his family and whatnot. And like one of them is saying basically like, I don't want you around our daughter. Like, it sounds like almost like it was George's ex or something like that. And, there's another one where Sarah's saying, he hit me in my face and I'm working on getting rid of him. And then another one where she talks about, well, hide and seek, I will. So it's almost like you get this vibe from these text messages of like, oh, she was, and I don't want to say planning this exact thing, but it was like this idea was floating around in her head, and the whole hide and seek and all this type of stuff. It was very weird to hear that. It just had this pre-planned vibe to it. And again, I don't think it was pre-planned, but it was just like something really horrible was going to happen to this man at her hands at some point, okay? Is the basic, energy I got from it. Okay, so then the state will go into basically the negative aspects that one can expect to hear on the stand about George. The drinking, the hitting, the fighting, all this stuff. Like, he's going ahead and calling it out to give context, because as we know, the defense is probably going to try and paint it to be something kind of different than it really was, okay? he will address the battered spouse syndrome that we're going to hear about. So all the bad stuff that the state is expecting him to throw out, he addresses it, right? And I like it when the state does this because it's like there's nothing to hide. We're not trying to hide anything. As they've said, we know that this was not a happy-go-lucky relationship all the time. Like, there were issues in this relationship, okay? We get that. We're not here to harp on those, though. Don't let the defense, try and distract you over here. That's not what this is about. This is about this, okay? So there's that. Now, the defense gets up there and they're like, hey, we want to invoke that rule. I was not clear what the rule was. I thought he was going to do the thing where it's like, we're going to actually do our opening statement later, but I'm not sure what that was. If you know, drop it in the comments. But he gets up there, he was talking about, thank you for doing your job to the jury. He wants them to find her not guilty because she was justified. Now, he's like, look, they were down and out. Their lives were centered around alcohol. He doesn't try to hide that. And he says, and they struggled. And he says that DV was at the center of this relationship. He says that George harmed her and that Sarah suffered the psychological effects of this kind of like long-term harm. They were together for 3 years. He says there's 2 sides to every story. He talks about the day of the event. He talks about the wine in the fridge, and they start the day off drinking. And we'll see videotapes of Publix. We'll see the receipts of the wine. Okay. They will talk about George was jealous of Sarah. He can be charming, but when he gets too drunk, he gets moody and has forcible adult activities with her and violence against her, okay? So if you've been following this, you'll know that he was trying to say, and by he, I mean the defense attorney, oh, well, when his blood alcohol, his BAC gets to this level, it's a whole different George, and I would argue the same for Sarah, okay? So, there's 2 sides to every coin in this. Okay, so when George comes in with the wine, and this is the day that this happened, she knows it's bad, and she placates him to keep him in a good mood. We're going to play this, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Well, they get silly, she goes upstairs, she waits in the shower, she gets cold, he never comes up. That was a little bit of a confusing part recently, because I think what was going on is they're trying to make it out like they were going to get busy. And so she's upstairs in the shower, and then she gets cold, and she's like, where is he, what's going on? So she comes downstairs, and she sees he's getting in the suitcase, and it's like, oh, ha ha ha, I'm gonna zip him up. And they laugh about this at first, but then he starts getting upset, and she can't tell if he's angry or not, and it's gonna cause harm to him. So and it's said he has a captive audience, so she gives it to him. I'm sorry, she has a captive audience, or he's a captive audience, so she really gives it to him, and she kind of goes off on him because they have to explain this video, remember that. Okay, he says that Sarah's going to take the stand and explain why this happened, and it will show that she is justified. So, he'll talk about the injuries that George has with a bat. He'll talk about a time where George intimidated her with a bat as well. He says that Sarah loved George. He says that there was no intent, that she did not want to end his life. He'll say that Sarah is not perfect. She slept in. She comes downstairs. She finds him in the suitcase. She gets him out. She tries CPR. Can't roll my eyes hard enough of that. She then contacts Brian. What do I do? He gets there. He walks in the foyer. He says, call 911. Sarah is filling out, and she thinks Sarah's freaking out, thinking she's somehow responsible. Then, we're going to see these interviews and whatnot, and she ends up lying to the cops because she's scared. She doesn't understand that what she did was justified. So all the stuff we're going to see, she's lying because she's trying to cover her tracks. Because she doesn't know that she was really doing something that she could, okay? So those were the opening statements. That's what everybody's claiming we're going to hear and see happen. Okay, so Juan Torres takes the stand. This is George's brother. There was really not much there. George was his older brother. They have 6 siblings. They look very similar. Okay, then we have Joan Williams, a 911 call operator, get on there. Very just run-of-the-mill. These people are kind of on and off, on and off, on and off. Now let's get to some bombshell info. Okay, Vincent, a neighbor, says that Sarah approached him. It was if you ever hear stuff through walls, arguing, all this kind of stuff, don't say anything just whatever. And she did something be very quiet. You know, I could just see her doing it, right? But basically she's like, you know, if you hear any stuff, just keep it on the low, right? So then he says, you know, on this night that this went down, he's like, there was this super loud noise, and it was loud enough it shook the walls, and the girlfriend's like, what the, you know, what was that, okay? So then on cross-examination, you know, he said that he's heard of cops coming into the place, but he's never seen it himself. And that was basically that. Okay, so then Brandon, the roommate, gets up there. Okay, and he's like, yeah, you know what? I tried to avoid them as much as possible. I don't like drunk people. I didn't want her around me. He says that, yeah, he hasn't seen himself, but his roommate has seen Boone passed out in the patio. He says there's another time where she was trying to talk to him and seemed like rambling on and paranoid and didn't want to go in the house. He says their place, their wall, shared the wall with where the stairs were. He says that they, you know, when he first moved in, there would be so much arguing, like at least once a week, this mega stuff, and I guess it just got worse. And he's like, we just eventually had to tune them out. So he said, then that same night, yeah, I heard this major fall down the stairs. It shook their rooms, it shook the walls, and it's like, what was that? Well, he never saw Sarah again after this. Then Brian Boone, the ex-husband, got on the stand. Y'all, you already know. Right at this point, we're like, seriously? All these people are getting up here. Okay, so he dated Sarah. They married, then divorced. Imagine that. Honestly, thank God. Okay, he would be next. Custody was supposed to be like, they had this like kind of situation where it was almost like, this week you have him 5 days, next week I have him 5 days, and it worked out that way. So like every other week type situation. So that night, Sarah calls him that night. It's late and she's drunk. Now he's like, she's done this before, so he basically ignores it, and he's like, whatever. And he's not really paying attention. You know, he doesn't hear her in the background. So this is just like, you know, run-of-the-mill type stuff. He's not really, you know, invested in it or whatever. So the next morning, he calls around 11 a.m. to find out if she was picking their son up. Now, when they press him about this, he's like, yeah, she wasn't really good about picking him up on the days that she was supposed to have him. And so she would, basically, he was like, well, I would just have to call to be like, so do you just want me to take him instead of you having him? Kind of a thing. And I'm like, oh, Mrs. I excel at everything. I'm a good mother. I'm a straight A student. Just, you know, oh, I can't get him. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, you go get him. That's the real truth going on here, okay? And think of how disappointing that is for the child. I mean, you know, at a certain point, he probably didn't want to go over there. So, when he does get Sarah on the phone that morning, she's like, George is dead. She gives him the hide-and-seek story, and he heads to her house. Well, en route, she calls him again, and he's like multiple times telling her to call 911, okay? He gets there, he goes in the foyer, he sees some legs, he's like, oh, hell no, okay? He's like, call 911, will not go in the house. He said that she was like, I want to have a glass of, like, a drink and a cigarette, join me. And he's like, absolutely not, I am not comfortable in here. No, she's gonna go outside and do that. Call 911. Y'all, that's the real Sarah right there. Then they play the 911 phone call. Okay. You can imagine how that went over. I actually re-recorded a video of it a few days ago. It'll come out tomorrow morning. Side note, on the defense table, there's a book for battered spouse syndrome. They're probably looking up the damn symptoms as they go, right? Okay, then the maintenance supervisor for the complex takes a stand. February 24th, he's involved in the scene. They basically contact him and they're like, you need to go to the Boone apartment. So he goes over there, police are there, ex-husband's there. She talks to him and the managers, and she's basically like, I'm confused. You know, we're playing hide and seek. You know, I was going to teach him a lesson, but I fell asleep. Okay, then we get an officer on the stand, and she is just amazing. All the officers in this detectives have been really amazing. So they play her body cam again. Sarah keeps saying, and this is like real fresh, right? Obviously, she forgot he was in the suitcase. She fell asleep. She totally forgot. Like, this is a major thing she's hitting home with in this video. Now, another body cam shows Sarah saying that, you know, it's not intentional, and she acts scared that she's in trouble. That's the vibe that's coming from the initial body cam footage, and I think the jury will see that. Like, this was like, she fell asleep drunk and this guy died, and they haven't seen the video yet of her recording, so that's where they're going to be at. So if they legitimately have not seen the video, this is what's simmering in their mind of, yeah, charge of the game, she got crocked, and this dude, you know, she, you know, ignored him and he died, then they're going to see her mocking him. In the video, in the body cam video, she's like, I'm scared the family's going to think I killed him, talking to the cops and whatnot. And just the whole thing, it's very transparent. Melissa, the crime scene investigator, gets up there. We see pictures of the big wine bottles, or those big ones. The house was relatively more put together than I expected, and a lot of people in the live chat said the same thing. We're shown pictures of Sarah, doing the little thing with her arms. No visible injuries. She never told the woman that she had injuries. They then show the suitcase, and well, first of all, they showed pictures of the suitcase. It had like stuff in it, and the stuff like clothes and stuff like that had blood on it. I mean, it was a very sobering moment when we got to this part, okay? So then they're like going through the evidence and whatnot with this woman, where they open the baseball bat and show it. Then they open the suitcase, which has been sitting over here in a big cardboard box the whole time, right? Like, for everybody's sake. So she has a hard time opening it, and you're watching it, and you're realizing it as a spectator. You're like, oh my goodness, like, this man fit in that, number one. And here this woman is, she can't even open it that well from the outside, moving around, stone cold sober. So what they do is they end the day here, right? And they're like, we're going to meet again Monday morning, 9 a.m. So they leave the day with that in the jury's mind, right? They've seen the body cam footage. They've heard the 911 phone call. They've heard Sarah's ex-husband get up there talking about she ditches the kid. I show up. I had to tell her to call 911 over and over. She wants to go have a drink, And then they're showing the suitcase. The neighbors talking about, I heard a huge thud falling down the stairs. She was always drunk. They were always fighting. So, yeah, no visible injuries. We haven't gotten to the interrogation, which is, she's done, right? She's done after today, in my opinion. We haven't gotten to the video of her mocking him while he's dying in the suitcase. And they made it clear that she is going to take the stand and testify to explain herself. I said in the beginning, but she's, 100% she's taking the stand. You know this, right? So, yeah. Overall, it was a roller coaster of emotions. Seeing this play out finally, you're just like, okay, well, here's these stories. This is ridiculous. It honestly ended on a very sobering, very sad note, because you're just seeing the demise of George and how this went down. And it seems like a horrible, horrible way to leave this earth, right? Absolutely horrible. So, my whole thing was this. I was like, yeah, this is what we thought. All these people that know her are getting up here and no one has anything good to say. This is not, your ex-husband's getting up here and saying this kind of stuff. No, absolutely not. I don't know why she took this to trial. I don't. Unless, I was kind of theorizing in the chat, and some other people were too, about she probably kind of likes where she's at. She gets a lot of attention. She doesn't have to do anything. She's kind of infamous. She probably was like, no, we'll take it up. We'll ride this out. We'll see. And we'll see. So, that's it. Anyways, I just want to come up and make a very quick video here with just some quick highlights of today for this channel. For those people who don't like the live chat vibe, I get that. So yes, in my opinion, I think they went through like 8 or 9 witnesses today. It was like boom, 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 boom. I think when the defense gets up there, it's going to slow way down. Because I think that they're going to drag it out and it's just going to be a nightmare. Because it's been a nightmare with the defense. So yeah, we shall see. So 9 a.m. Monday morning, podcast channel will be streaming. And that's kind of it. Let me know if you watched it. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. I'm dying to know. And that's it. Justice is on the way for George. So buckle up, because here we go. So that's it. Like I said, let me know what you think down in the comment section. Drop some sofas off for myself, Rosco and Spirit, Bo and Luke, who are running all around. They've been streaming with us all day long. And then we'll have a little place in the comment section to hang out and talk about this case, all the other ones. And until we do, I'll see y'all soon. I just wanted to say thank you again for watching the whole video, and also thank you for being part of the Sofa Squad. Special thanks to all the Patreon members, channel members from both of my channels, everybody who likes, shares, subscribes, comments in the comment sections. It helps the channel out so much. Now, don't forget, I do have that other channel, the podcast channel. That's where we go live, we hang out, we talk. We have kind of sort of a schedule, but just be sure and check it out. I'll put it up here on the screen. Also, if you're looking for merch, be sure to check out my Teespring store. store, I'll put that up here. And then, like I said in the beginning of the video, if you want to follow me and Rosco on the Instagram, go on, check it out. It's right here on the screen again. But once again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being part of the Sofa Squad, and I'll see you in the next video.